What's up, New Vintage? How we doing? Wow. Whoa, wow. Hey, thank you so much. I'm going to give it right back. That's good. Thank you so much. Lively crowd, Darren. Lively crowd. I love it. There's like a cutout room with people back there. That's so cool, man. That's extra special. I'm telling you, I saw the video of the walk. Me as a teenager, I'd be asleep in that back row way back. Is there somebody asleep? Nod your head if somebody's asleep. No, okay. You're going to keep them awake. Good deal. Hey, who all went to the walk? Yeah. Come on, front row. I love it. That's incredible. Yeah. I was youth pastor for 14 years, and so when Darren called me and said, hey, man, I'm going to camp. I need somebody to pinch hit on Sunday. I kind of was expecting you to just be home right now. It's wine country. I thought you'd have a glass of wine, a bubble bath. Like, let's give it up for Darren for being here. Wow. I was like, dude, I got this. Like, you can go, man. But anyway, glad you're here, Darren, I guess. Darren is, he's a mentor to me. He's been an incredible mentor to me. I'll name a few mentor to mentee relationships, all right? You ready? Aristotle needed Plato, all right? Mark Zuckerberg needed, oh gosh, I blanked on it. Steve Jobs. Thank you, Katie. She knows my message. I'll bring it home because I have two kids. Josh from Blue's Clues needed Steve. Like, we need mentors. And I needed Darren. 10 years ago, I just reached out to him. He was a high school pastor in the Atlanta area. And I just said, hey, man, can you just make some time? Like, could I drive up there, meet with you, talk ministry? And we just hit it off. Like, he lives this series, y'all. Like, he lives this series. He's one of the most encouraging people I've ever met. And so we exchanged numbers, we would talk. He would invite me to things that I didn't really belong at with other youth pastors. I got to meet other people. He gave me opportunity. He came and spoke to my leaders, spoke to my students. And man, I'm telling you, this idea of giving encouragement to someone so that they can experience the courage of God, your pastor lives this series. Like, he is an encourager through and through. Yeah, I heard the little bit of clap there. And Darren, I like the word range. I like that for Alabama and Southern California. The trick to having range with those two places is in Alabama, I talk a lot of Southeastern Conference football. But what I actually agree with you, because what I love to talk is West Coast baseball. That is my passion. Hold on, though. He did say I was from Southern California, right? It was only a matter of time. So I knew I wanted to go to Oracle Park. I knew I wanted to see a Giants game. The Giants were playing the Red Sox, but I have allegiance to another team, and so I just showed up to the game dressed like this. You know how crazy you look to go to a baseball game with no sports ball memorabilia whatsoever? I would look less crazy if I wore a Taylor Swift t-shirt and just acted like I thought I was in Levi Stadium. Like, hey, this is... When does it get to the T-Swift? I don't understand when they get to the... And so we're watching the Giants play the Red Sox, and every time this Red Sox player by the name of Justin Turner steps up to the plate, the whole crowd goes, boo. Like, they start booing him. You know why they're booing him? He was playing for a team that I won't say the name. He's not even on that team. And the Giants are booing him. I lean over to my wife and I go, we're not telling anybody we're Dodgers fans. We're not telling anybody. In fact, as we came through the gate, it was like rally towel night. And so just to blend in, I was like, yeah, I'll take a rally towel. And so I have this. It's not recording right now. I feel like this could, no, Darren, no, don't put this. Here's the thing. This can't go home with me. Like, this can't go on the plane with me. Yeah, there we go. This is going to make me look really weak because the towel just doesn't fly, but I'm going to try to, oh, there we go. Yeah, anybody else Giants fans? My man way in the back. Darren, you want to help me out? Wave right there. Meet Darren halfway. You know, Darren's tired. He's been at camp all week. Bro. Did you hear that? He said, I'm not a Dodgers fan. Wow. It's so good. What was that? Giants fans know how to throw. That's right, yeah. I walked into that one. That was good. So This series makes sense. This is not just Darren's good idea. This is not just something that, that hopefully we're hoping will catch fire, that will be just kind of a good idea that we came up with. This idea of being encouragers, to give people courage, this is biblical. This is who God calls us to be as followers of his. This is what he wants us to be about. And so if you look at Romans 15:2 with me, here's what it says for the local church. It says, let each of us please his neighbor for his good. Very clearly here, to build him up. That's the goal, to build each other up. This is the heart of Jesus. This is who he is. Jesus is an encourager. He's a builder up. He's not leaving you the same way that he found you, and so he's building you up into who he created you to be, and so we're joining him in that work of encouragement. Darren's modeled this the whole time I've known him. So this series makes sense. This is not just something we're going to close the book on next week. This is going to be who we are as a church, as New Vintage. We're going to be people that build others up because that's who Jesus is. So 2 Sundays ago, when Darren's speaking, and he shows you that mean comment on the Instagram post, anybody remember that? The mean comment directed at him? You all said, that's not cool, and you moved on. That's an appropriate response, by the way. I pulled out my phone and I found that account. Some of us did, okay, yeah. Okay, we need a text, and I plotted for maybe 5 minutes of okay, how do I take this online troll down? I gotta take this, because that's my boy. To quote Dwight Schrute talking about Michael Scott from The Office, you mess with Mozart, you're gonna have to deal with Mozart's friend, I was ready to handle your lightweight for you, dude. I was ready. I was coming for him. But here's the truth, whether or not it's an online troll targeting your mentor, we all have Debbie Downers. We all have people that we know that we could say, let's give the guy version, a down in the dumps Dan. Sorry if your name's Dan. We all know people, my youth pastor used to say it this way, that some people walk in the room and you say amen, other people walk in the room and you say, oh man. Even Moses in the Old Testament, he would go up on Mount Sinai, he would spend time with God, and he would literally get a godly glow on his face, and then he'd come down and be with the Israelites, and that glow would fade right off. People. It's messy with people. And so as we've talked about this for 5 weeks now, of being encouragers, building people up, giving people the hope of Jesus, telling them they have the courage for what's coming next, the truth is, we're all going to be met with some form of discouragement. We're all going to be met with someone who doesn't like our message, someone who's difficult to encourage, someone we don't even want to encourage. We're all going to have to face this. This discouragement thing is going to be a tough road. We've been asking this question every single week of the series. What would it take to make Santa Rosa the most encouraging city on the planet? And I agree with Darren. I'm not sure. But I know along the way, we're all going to take some bumps and bruises with discouragement. Not any of us every single morning wake up going, today's going to be a day I'm going to encourage other people. Not any of us are batting 1,000 when it comes to other people receiving what we're trying to do as far as love towards other people. Not any of us feel like it. Not all of us are waking up going, this is it, man, I'm going to be an encourager. We're waking up thinking about the person that we're not ready to face. We're waking up thinking about, man, I hope it's going to be a good day at work. I hope this person isn't there. I hope I don't have that same meeting waiting for me that was coming down the pike yesterday. And so when we talk about this, discouragement is right around the corner. It's true. I am a 90s kid through and through, and this year, 2 different documentaries, ESPN and Netflix put out 2 different documentaries about the show American Gladiators. Anybody remember that show, American Gladiators from the 90s? My man, come on. Who was your favorite gladiator? I'm putting you on the spot. Think about it, get back to me. Mine was Turbo. Turbo was the best for me. Gemini was a close second. So I remember this as a kid. I loved this show as a kid. And so I'm watching this documentary and I'm finding out about all the inner workings, all the behind the scenes stuff about American Gladiators. Not all of it was surprising, some of it was not surprising. What? These guys were on steroids? What? No way. It's, just look at picture season 1 versus season 3. I'm just telling you. You don't get that, anyway. But you know what was surprising is that when they started that show, they had just 6 gladiators. And they would film an entire half season in 3 weeks, 12-hour days for 3 weeks. What they didn't plan for with those 6 gladiators and that strenuous schedule was these guys were going to get hurt. These guys were going to get injured. They were going to get beat up. They were going to get bruised. They were going to take their licks. And so if you ever watch that show and you're like, how could this scrawny contender ever take down this gladiator on a joust? It's probably because it's like the 12th guy that gladiators had to face. And so they'd wrap up on the season and then immediately would go out on a national tour. And so there was no time to nurse injuries. They were all like facing their own bumps and bruises. And this is my picture that I have of what it means to be an encourager, is that as you go out there trying to live this series, doing your thing, you're going to be nursing some bumps and bruises. There's going to be some injuries of discouragement that come your way. If you've already had the thought, maybe secretly, maybe you didn't say it out loud, are you kidding me? The church put another magnet on my car? Like, what am I going to do with this now? It's okay to think that. It's okay to think that. You've already bumped into the fact that encouragement is going to be a little bit tougher. Maybe you got crazy with it, and you're like, I'm going to order the 100 magnets, I'm going for it, and you've given them out to every single person you can think of. Every car you've seen, and you're going, I still have 87 of these bad boys. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. You've already bumped into the fact that encouragement is going to be tough. And so as we answer this question about what is it going to take, this discouragement thing is waiting around the corner for us. And I want you to see this. I want you to connect this. This is Romans 15:4. If we keep going to Romans 15, it tells us, for whatever was written in former days was written for our instruction, that through endurance and through the encouragement of the scriptures, we might have hope. Jesus is aware that what he's asking of us to be builders, to encourage people, is going to take endurance. There's going to be a honeymoon phase that comes to an end. There's going to be bumps and bruises. There's going to be injuries sustained. There's going to be discouragement to be had. And so I want to talk today just about 2 ways that God doesn't intend for your encouragement to warp over time. As you're trying to learn endurance, as you're trying to marathon this thing and you're nursing injuries or discouragement or other people's opinions or whatever else you might be carrying, there's 2 things that aren't part of God's plan. So here's the first one: selective encouragement. Because there are people out there that won't take our encouragement the way that we want them to. It's going to be easy to go, you know what? Everyone else except for that one guy. Everybody else except for that one family member. I'll encourage everybody else. I'll be a builder up of everybody else, but not this person. They wouldn't want it. They wouldn't use it. I don't want them to have it. I used to watch this movie. I've never actually seen the real theatrical version, but Comedy Central played an edited for TV version of the movie Half Baked. It was a comedy movie in the 90s. Okay, I'm back now. The Dodger thing? But now I'm back, okay. So I've never seen the actual theatrical version of this movie, but there's a scene where one of the guys is working at a fast food restaurant, and he's just taking it from coworkers, he's taking it from customers. Yeah, okay, all right. Comedy Central, I got you, okay. So he finally has enough. He throws the spatula down, he takes the order microphone, goes over the loudspeaker, and he's just having the most epic quit of a fast food restaurant you could have. And so he just starts pointing people out. He's like, forget you, forget you. He sees a nice elderly woman, and he goes, you're cool. She gives him a thumbs up. And then the last guy, he goes back and says, and forget you, I'm out. That's selective encouragement. That's what it looks like, is that we choose to have a selectiveness to who we're going to encourage. We start deciding who's worthy of it. We start deciding who actually gets our encouragement, who actually gets our courage. And we're saying, I don't know, this person, I don't like how they responded to me the other day. I don't know if I'm going to give that to them. There was a guy I worked with, and for whatever reason, it just became more and more clear the more I worked with him. It seemed like he got along with everybody else at work except me. It just became really clear that it was a personal thing with me. So I'm like, man, what's going on with this guy? And so finally it got to a point where I'm like, I'm just going to meet with him we got beef, we got to squash this beef. And so we sit down, we have a conversation, and I'm happy to report to you that it just got worse. It basically was me starting the conversation with, hey man, if I've slighted you in any way, I'd love to make amends, I'd love to talk to you about it. And then me listening for the next half hour as he just racked his brain for different ways to say he just didn't like me as a person. It was kind of like Rob Riggle to Will Ferrell, I just don't like your face. Will Ferrell was like, is there anything I can do about it? Is there anything? He's like, no, just change your face before I change it for you. Like, it was one of those meetings. And it's weird. I don't know what it was. I've dealt with angry emails before. I've dealt with all that. But because we were coworkers, because I wanted to be on the same team, it just sat different with me. In fact, the real reason why it messed me up was some of those things that he said, I was actually worried of whether or not they were true. And so I would talk to my wife, Katie, about it, and she would say, no, that's not who you are. Like, he's just making things up. He's just trying to be discouraging. I called Darren and talked to him about it. And it's weird. No matter how much encouragement I received, I couldn't shake the discouragement. You guys ever notice that? That it's like one bit of discouragement can weigh as much as 100 pieces of encouragement. It just sits differently with you. And so when I think about this series, I think about the bumps and bruises of what other people have said to you, what other people have done to you, maybe even what you feel about yourself because of what you've said, what you've done. And I realize that we all have enemies, whether or not it's an actual person or just something a person said. We all have enemies of our courage. We all have enemies that something back there, when we get down, there's those thoughts. They're playing in our head. They're living up there rent-free, saying, you're not good enough. Do you remember who do you think you are? Do you remember who you are? Do you remember that you were this person? Do you remember that you were doing this? Do you remember you were doing that? And so we all have these enemies of encouragement. I don't think there's a tougher commandment, in my opinion, than what Jesus says in Matthew 5:44, where he tells us, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. I look at this and I'm like, yeah, Jesus, is this like an actual command, or is this like, just a nice thing to say? Like, is this just like you put it up on the wall and it looks pretty? Like, is this an actual able to follow command of Jesus? But he meant it, and he still means it. And so finally, because every time I got down, I would think about that coworker, I think about an old boss of mine, I finally was like, all right, I'm just going to try it. So about a year ago, anytime those negative thoughts came up, those discouraging things that I thought about myself because of what other people had said, I tried to pray for those people. First time I did it, couldn't even pray. It was like, dear God, no, that's not going to happen today. Not today. Nope. Gave it the old sophomore try. It's not happening. Second time, I actually prayed, but it was the most passive-aggressive prayer you would ever hear. A lot of prayer for justice to be had. You ever prayed like that? But I realized that every time I tried to exercise this command from Jesus to pray for those who persecute me, to love my enemies, what it was making me do was it was making me face what Jesus has done for me. It was making me look in the mirror and realize, holy cow, I've done worse things to God than any person has ever done to me. He created me. But I've thrown that back in his face. I've rejected him more times than I can count. I've sinned against him in more ways that I could even recount to you today. And he's still graciously forgiving me, healing me, loving me, working on me. And I realized something. Grace changes things. If my sense of justice comes from yours and my interactions in our everyday lives, yeah, I need to be selective in my encouragement. But the grace of Jesus changes my sense of justice. Justice is flipped upside down now. And when I think about selective encouragement, man, I think about this. Jesus was not selective in the grace that he extended me. And so I want you to see this, because here's the truth. Building others up takes keeping up with grace. If you want to be built for the long haul and not get tripped up by other people's discouragement, it takes keeping up with grace in your life. Now, grace is a church word. But here's what grace is. It's not just when you put your faith in Jesus. That is an act of grace, but it's the beginning act of grace. It's a ongoing act of grace in your life. What is grace? It's God's unearned favor. It's his unearned kindness. In other words, it's his ongoing work that he's doing every single day in your life. You're not making yourself more spiritual. You're not giving yourself stronger character or conduct. He is gracing you and changing you by his goodness, by his unearned favor, by his unearned kindness. And so every step forward I take in Jesus is a step in grace. I love this thought because grace is like this step-by-step process that he is working in things in me. He's changing me, and I know how big of a knucklehead I am. So grace is this incredible thing. And so Hebrews 12 puts it this way when it comes to keeping up with grace. It says, make sure that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no root of bitterness springs up, causing trouble and defiling many. Now this context here, what the writer of Hebrews is talking about, he's in a whole part where he's been talking about that God's love, his correction is out of his love. His correction and the way that he leads us, even when he convicts us, it's saying it's for our healing, it's for our goodness, it's for grace because he's trying to take us somewhere and change us for the better. And so right before this verse is talking about things like, hey, strengthen yourself in him. Make a straight path for your feet. And then we get to this verse talking about a straight path for our feet where it says, don't fall short of the grace of God. What's it saying? It's not talking about whether or not you're saved. It's talking about there's an ongoing work of grace, so keep up. There's an ongoing work of healing in my life, and so keep in step with that. One of my favorite theologians, who just so happens to be a Californian too, I won't say which baseball team he goes for, David Guzik, he said it this way: the grace of God is moving on past the pain and hurt of the past. We should move on also. Do you see the difference between getting over something and moving on because I'm healing? Moving on because the grace of Jesus has changed my sense of justice? He's not telling you just to get over it. He's not saying what this person said, what this person did is okay. He's saying you're okay because of grace. He's saying that won't stick to you because that's not who you are in me anymore. Isn't that good? Amen. The grace of God is healing you, moving you, changing you. I'm telling you, I've heard stories of people that have walked with Jesus, and I hear what they've walked through in their past, and I look at them and I go, how in the world do you have so much joy? How in the world do you have so much peace? Is somebody behind me? No, okay. I just saw eyes darting this way, so okay. I'm a little freaked out now. Somebody didn't like what I said, I'm going to take out this Dodger. And so we, as followers of Jesus, as grace changes us, heals us, guys, here's the best news I could give you. Because of the grace of Jesus, you don't look like what you've been through. You're healed. You're whole. How in the world could I hold on to bitterness? How could I be selective in my encouragement because everything I have, there's no more debt that you owe me because the greater debt's been forgiven. My greater debt's been forgiven. It changes things. And so I love this. Don't fall short of the grace of God, and don't let a root of bitterness spring up, causing trouble, defiling many. Think about this root of bitterness. The reason why encouragement is going to take some endurance is because we're not just planting encouragement. We're also uprooting bitterness. We're also uprooting something that's had a lot of soil, a lot of time to grow in our own lives, a lot of time to grow in the lives of other people. And so the second way that encouragement we could get thrown off the track with encouragement, not just selective encouragement, but the second way is this word called cynicism. Cynicism is another way that we can get thrown off our game when it comes to being encouragers. What is cynicism? It's just a passive bitterness towards all or most people. It's just an expectation of the worst in other people. And I'm going to be honest with you, we all have our own battle with the root of cynicism in our lives. Have you ever been in anything and been hurt by someone, hurt by a situation, you name it, you fill in the blank, you probably deal with some version of cynicism. where you just go, I've seen this song and dance before. This is not, I'm not going to get wrapped up in this thing because I know how people are. So you question people's motives. You can't see whether or not someone's motives are pure, and so you just have a skepticism. You have a distrust towards people. There's a composer in New York that's around my age, and he said this about my generation. I think it's accurate. He says, the age of anxiety has given way to the age of cynicism. It's tough to care, is what he's saying. Among my generation, cynicism is no longer a bad word. It's being celebrated, and it's often mistaken for intelligence. He says it's better to be wry and distrustful than to be open and trusting. You know why cynicism is so easy? Like the reason why it defiles many, it causes trouble, is because it's so easy to get swept up in it. Because what does it promise? It promises like this protective gear from being hurt again. It almost promises this false sense of intelligence, like I really know what's going on. And so we wear it as a badge. We're going, I know what's going on. And that cynicism is telling us we really understand how the world works. We really understand what's really going on in this situation. There's a Christian author by the name of Jason Dusing, and he said this about even Christians and how we deal with cynicism. He said, the pull towards cynicism is easier to follow than the struggle to resist. And this part hits me right between the eyes. Sarcasm comes too easy. Complaining is default small talk, and despair can mark us more than joy. I wonder how many times I've just let my cynicism talk for me. It's like a default setting, where I just talk about people as if they're not people. Or I just talk about people in this really restrictive way where I'm the hero and they're the villain. If anybody's ever slighted me, then they're in the wrong. And it's so easy to default to cynicism. So easy to get swept up in this thing. And the truth is, we're swimming against the current of the way we view the world. Not just us, but people in our community. We are in an age of cynicism, and that's where Jesus loves to do his best work. We're not the first generation to face cynicism. Early on in Jesus' ministry, he had this follower named Philip, and Philip was like, this is awesome. I got a friend who's got to meet Jesus. He goes and finds this guy named Nathaniel. He's all excited. He's like, Nathaniel, we found him. We found the Messiah. His name is Jesus of Nazareth. You got to come meet him. He's incredible. He's going to change your life. And Nathaniel, in his cynicism, just goes, he skips the Messiah part. He just goes, Nazareth? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? He's probably a Dodgers fan. I'm not going down there. And he knows his friend is cynical, but what does he say to his friend? Come and see for yourself. He knows that the cynicism of his friend has to meet the reality of Jesus. Jesus knows that what we stand for swims against the current. Compassion, God's grace, forgiveness, healing, reconciliation in relationships, hope. Man, do you feel like that message is out there in the world every single day? It's a different against the current message that we have. And so this cynicism has to be, we have to understand that we are swimming against the current, that we are working on something that the world doesn't hear on a regular basis. Of course there's going to be discouragement. Of course there's going to be pushback because the message of Jesus always has been countercultural. It always has been hope in the middle of despair. It's always been joy when it makes no sense. It's always been peace when I don't even have the provision or the answer yet. And so because he knows this, here's what Jesus tells his followers as they first try to go out and do his work and be builders just like him. He says this, he says, behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Best pep talk ever, right? Jesus, you know what wolves do to sheep, right? They don't have good plans for them. They have meal plans for them. Here's what he says next. He says, so be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Here's what I want you to see today. Jesus wants your wisdom to grow, not your cynicism. He doesn't want the false wisdom. He doesn't want the, I really know what's going on. He doesn't want you to check out on the message of hope because he sees that as an ineffective way to live. What he wants is wisdom to grow. What he wants is for you to learn, yeah, people are people. We all fall short, but I still have the compassion and hope of Jesus because he changes things. Wisdom and compassion. We need wisdom. We can't financially support every Nigerian prince that emails us. We need some wisdom. But cynicism is not his plan for you. He doesn't want you to have what some people call an aging heart. One Christian author wrote that an aging heart is so prevalent these days, especially even in young people. A maturing mind is what he wants. Wisdom with his passion, both at full level in your life. As tender-hearted as you are wise. So yeah, this could be thrown back in my face. Yeah, people have their mess, and yeah, it might take a while. But at the same time that that's a reality, the hope of Jesus means I have to try. And here's the best news I have for you. This is not just your job to do on your own. This enduring encouragement, this idea that I'm going to continue to go, this is not what God wants you to muster up in your own strength. He doesn't want you to figure this out apart from him. Look at how this whole passage closes in Romans 15. This is verse 5. It says, may the God of endurance and encouragement. Who's actually the endurer? Who's actually the encourager? God himself. It says, may the God of endurance and encouragement grant you to live in such harmony with one another in accord with or according to Christ Jesus. That harmony with each other, that peace, that building each other up. This is not your work. This is ultimately God's work. God is the enduring encourager. A simpler way to say that, God is the God of hope. Hey, many of you are here because of other people's encouragement, and that's awesome. Other people's encouragement, when they join Jesus in that work of trying to encourage others, man, there's nothing like that. It swims against the current. It's so incredible. But friend, let me tell you, God, when he directly encourages you, it hits different. We are like sparks of endurance and encouragement, but when someone is directly encouraged by God, that's like a bonfire. Let me say it this way. We can, through our encouragement, be starters of other people's courage. But what we really want is for you and I to connect with God, who is the sustainer of encouragement and courage. It's not your job. You don't have to make it up. You don't have to act like you're ready to run this marathon. You don't have to pretend like you don't have bumps and bruises. You don't have to pretend like you're healed from everything. You bring all that mess to the grace of God, and the enduring encouragement will heal you and bring hope to you. Look to him. Keep up with grace. Don't let the root of bitterness get a hold of your life. He wants you to have wisdom, not cynicism. And as we leave this honeymoon phase of being encouragers, may the God of endurance and encouragement grant you hope so that we can live in harmony and see other people discover this incredible, life-changing grace that's known as Jesus. Can I pray for you? God, thank you so much for grace. Let it change how we see people. God, we want to be built for the long haul. We don't want to just let this thing just tucker out over time. We want this thing to not just be a thing we tried one summer. We want to be an encouraging church. We want to see the vision of making Santa Rosa the most encouraging city on the planet happen. And so we are going to keep up with the God of endurance and encouragement. You can sustain us. You can give us hope. You can give us encouragement. So encourage each person here today as we have the courage to live the way you told us. In Jesus' name, amen. Good dad. Good dad.
I will try to vet our speakers' sports teams a little better in the future. But don't you all think Matt and Katie would look good living in Santa Rosa, working here, serving here? Don't you think? I just feel like it's a little, let me just speak a little prophecy over you real quick. Now, I've told Matt we'd love to see what God's doing in your life, and we're praying about who else is going to join this team and be a part of leading us into all that God's doing, because it's been incredible growth and excitement to see what God's doing in students and in your lives. So next week, I'm going to wrap this series up. It's going to be a really great ending to the series, I think. And if you've been thinking about, when should I invite my friend? I've got this friend. What's a good Sunday? Next Sunday is a really good Sunday to bring somebody. I think it's going to be a Sunday full of hope and life and joy. It's going to be a good word for people. So next Sunday will be a great Sunday. And then the Sunday after that will be a great Sunday. And the Sunday after that will be a great Sunday. And following that will be a great Sunday as well. We love you guys. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.